Hey everybody, welcome to Watches with Dennis. And it's Saturday. This time the stream actually started properly. I wondered because the software was sort of lagging for a little bit, but it did get in. Need to clear my throat. I apologize. And we have some new watches to go ahead and talk about for today's show, which again, all of the information in terms of the articles that we'll be reviewing are in the video description. So you can go and read those in detail to your heart's content. We're actually going to cover 3 different brands. We're going to do something. There's no theme. If you want there to be a theme to the watches other than that they are new, they all start with a B. So we're going to do Bell and Ross, we're going to do Breitling, and then we're going to do Blancpain. And that's the plan. And I did not mean to only choose B companies. It just happened to work out that way in terms of what I thought, what few things had come out that were maybe in some degree interesting enough to have a discussion on. In terms of housekeeping items, like I like to do at the start, not a whole lot to share with you all. I was out for a work trip during about half of the last week, so I didn't expect to be able to do any sort of pre-recorded video, and I was able to, but not until last night. So there is a video now up about Seiko pricing. Specifically, it's a movement analysis, so it's very, very nerdy. There are 2 different graphs that are used in the video. In fact, the combined graph time on the video is probably, I don't know, 4 minutes. I didn't put any motion or anything to them because I thought if people wanted to read the graphs for a little bit, they need to actually be able to see them. But long story short, I had the idea of, I saw a discussion, I think it was, what's his name? Mike with Islander Watch, Mark with Islander Watch. He had a video about gray market pricing and his experience as a Seiko dealer. And I thought, well, that's something that has affected me. I don't know, but it still didn't really solve the issue about why it feels like Seiko throws the dice when they're trying to price their watches, or when we're trying to figure out what the price might be. And I'm thinking along the lines of a blog to watch and their game they do on the guess the price of the Seiko that they do on their podcast. And so anyway, I thought, okay, well, let's actually do some numeric measurement. I took 3 identical function movements, so they're all time plus date. So I do a 4R35, a 6R35, and the 8L35. So they all do the same thing for a watch, but they all obviously are different tiers in Seiko's world. And I wanted to really explore whether we knew which, like, the better the movement, the more expensive the watch. Everyone, I think, understood that. And I've often just said that's the first thing you got to go with when trying to guess the pricing. But I really wondered, was there a lot of reference overlap between those models, or are they really actually quite distinct? And it's actually more the latter, but I won't spoil any more of it. You can go watch the video if you actually care at all about Seiko pricing. I almost did the 4R36. It's obviously the most popular. I think it's the most popular because Seiko 5s like all use it. The problem is when I moved more upstream, day dates aren't nearly as common. So it started to get a little challenging. I even using the 8L35, there were only 16 watches available. And a couple of them are pretty high up because they're actually 3 of the models were really higher than the rest because they're limited editions. And I did not, if there was a watch that had the movement and it had the price on SeikoWatches.com website, I used it. I did no other criteria. So anyway, so that's the latest video. I published that about 12 hours ago. And that's the only one since our last live stream. So let me go ahead and get caught up with chat. Koji asks if I have a Fagliano strap on the reverser. So he's identified the watch. I didn't do the watch check. So continuing the theme of the last now 3 live streams of why doesn't Dennis wear dress watches when he live streams, because he's always in t-shirts, I put on the reverso today. Yes, this is the Fagliano strap that the watch came with. I've alternated. I have a deluxe strap that I had on this for a while, but I've had others tell me they think the strap works better for it. So yeah, it's just the standard. It's very comfortable. It's a little brown. I guess it's a little saddle leather for me. Like I would have probably personally preferred it to be a lighter brown. It's neither here nor there. The reverso looks pretty good on just about any leather strap that's out there, but anyway, I hadn't been wearing this one lately, so I figured I would go ahead and throw it on with my trusty Hulk 2 D2 beep boop shirt, which is another pinball reference that no one will get. Good morning, Kevin. Welcome to the live stream. Glad you could make it. Joe, I like the market analysis videos, even though not interested in Seiko prices. Okay, well, I might do another. I used to do a lot of review of more luxury pieces. So, used pricing in particular, what's happened, like right when it was one of my better performing videos, which I caught right the start of the wave when 2023 March and the market, or was it 2022? I don't remember anymore. I think it was 2023. And the prices all started to collapse on all the hype watches. So I had a few videos about that. Thing is, now Watch Charts is doing their own videos, and they're also giving their data to some other bigger YouTubers because I don't pay to get like the 5-year histories and stuff. So anyway, long story short, there are a lot of people that are riding that wave now, so I don't want to be overly redundant. But I thought the Seiko movement thing would be something a little bit different. That was actually kind of fun to dive into. I don't know. I'd have to do it in chunks if I wanted to do other movements, because the problem that I found, Seiko, so I had the idea while I was out at a conference. The problem is Seiko's website and the Seiko USA website, because I started there, they don't let you sort by movement. They say they do, but when you use their filters, it's like quartz or solar or automatic. It does not like a 4 series movement or a 6 series movement. However, their search bar, if you type in the specific movement, it was, setting aside all the news articles, all the watches that would show up did have the caliber driving it. So I was able to do it that way, but it was a lot of manual typing. I think there were 56 Rs in my list. I had 36 4Rs. There were actually 39, but 3 of them weren't released yet. They released next month, so they didn't have pricing. And then there were another 16 8Ls. So, I used almost 90 watches. But anyway, it is what it is. Good morning, Neff. Welcome to the live stream. And thank you to you and Koji for being 99-cent club members. I do appreciate it. Koji adds, that JLC works pretty much with any outfit I found. It's very versatile. And Neff says, the Seiko analysis was great. I was surprised with the results as well. The spoiler was I thought there would be overlap, and I didn't find it. But I postulate some theories as to why not. Speaking of theories, what's the theory behind me choosing 3 different B-named brands for this? Was it really just random like I claimed at the start? Or is it all lies and shenanigans? I don't know. But we do have new watches to talk about. And so we are going to go ahead and start with Bell & Ross, a brand I have never owned and probably never will own because I basically don't like anything that they do. However, my reluctance behind the brand has shifted from just being kind of like an outright they ugly sort of approach where I just have no interest in them. I've talked about them from time to time. I think they're very good specification-wise watches. It's just these circles within square thing. Like I like some squares and other squares don't work for me. And I was going to say it's like if it's a dress square, like if it's a rectangle like this or a Santos, a tank, I like them, but it really varies. Like the Monaco doesn't work for me. This general shape, very tool function looking to me, but just doesn't really work for me. Now I should clarify, Bell & Ross doesn't just do this shape. So it is conceivable I could end up with a Bell & Ross that probably just wouldn't be their most famous shape, but I don't seriously look at anything that they do. However, I do think they make very nice watches. It's just the shape doesn't really appeal to me. But it might appeal to some of you. So I wanted to talk a bit about this because they've been working on their BR03 lineup for years now. Incremental improvement, I think, is probably the safest way to describe it. Again, this is a Worn and Wound article, and the link is in the video description like I always do. So they now have some dive versions that they have just rolled out. In fact, there are 5 new references that have come out that this article explores. So you'll see that there are a variety of dial colorways. This is more of I think, a pilot watch skeleton, but you can see they've gone with a dive watch function. 300 meters water resistance, so actually a pretty impressive specification dive watch, especially because I don't think this is overly thick. These are driven by one of their, it's not a brand new movement, but it's one of the newer Bell & Ross movements, has 50 hours of power reserve. Ceramic inserts for the bezel in these cases, and they have a number of interesting choices here. So I want to go ahead and go down to the pictures. These are, the prices range from $4,400 to $5,400, depending on which one you go with, because some of these are the steel case. You can kind of see like here, these are the cheaper ones on the strap with the steel casing. And then they did, that's 3 of the references. And then they did 2 ceramic versions. This one, which might be my favorite, with its all matte black look to it. But I don't know, it's this one. That one was the steel one. I couldn't tell because of the light glare. But so this one, I've always had a soft spot for matte black watches. I already have one, though. My Moser's a DLC coded watch, so I haven't really looked at getting another one. But I think this white indices with black case, black strap, black bezel, just like the Dark Side of the Moon from Omega, I think it works pretty well here. And then they have this. So if you like the Studio Underdog Series 2, but it was too, like, you didn't like the price with it being a field watch, you wanted a dive watch, here's a full loomed dial from Bell & Ross. I don't think this is the first time they've done this, but this is a blue one. So I thought, regardless of anything else, this was a really good photo. So if you like loom, they went ahead and did green for all the markings, and then the dial itself glows blue. And it reminded me of the Studio Underdog, but I actually like the look of it because it's still so functional rather than being playful. I really like the look of it. My least favorite part, of course, is the date window, and not because it's a 430, but that's probably part of the reason I've not really resonated with this series. The date windows, I mean, they are stepped. You can I might be able to blow this up more. Probably not, but I mean, I can, but the picture's not going to zoom properly. I don't know if they have a close-up of the date window. It is a bit stepped. Here we go. You can kind of see it. But it still feels very Hamilton circle cut out cheap, which I hate. So that's part of it. But anyway, quite impressive specifications on this. Pricing isn't really bad, especially when you consider the ceramic versions only being around $5,400. So anyway, I'll get caught up in chat with chat here in a moment. But so if you like the shape and you wanted some serious dive specifications for these watches, they have them out now. So there you go. Bell & Ross is selling them because they keep working on this BR03, doing new stuff with it. So I think it's working for the brand, even if it does not work for me. Neff, he comments, I've always had a soft spot for B&R after seeing them for years in the back of Car and Driver as a kid. I did not read Car and Driver as a kid, so that's probably why I have no soft spot for them. Good morning, Tuna. Welcome to the live stream. And Neff adds, I love the full loom version. Problem is, Bell & Ross are usually way too big for my baby wrist. And that's a good point. I didn't really spend any time on the sizing because Worn and Round didn't group it. But I did read all of this. So it is a 42 millimeter. 42 meter would be probably too big for most of us. It's 42 millimeter dive watch, which, okay, that's pretty standard for a dive watch space. That's we'll say a normal size 42. However, I think there was some pretty big thickness involved with this as well, but I do not. Where is this? I thought they had it spelled out. Maybe I have to read it on the back, but this reminds me of a blog to watch where they just bury the lead in the body of the articles, which is my biggest gripe with them. But yeah, so 42, I don't think that's too bad. I mean, I have divers up to 44, but it's not small. And the thing that surprised me, I think that is the only stat I saw on it. The thing that surprised me about it was it's 42, but remember the case is a square. That's a very big square. Squares wear larger. They feel larger on the wrist. With them. That's part of the reason why I think some people have criticized Vacheron Constantin's original 1921 Historique release. It's a 40 millimeter. That is a very big watch. Arguably wears more like a 42. The lug to lug isn't like excessive. It's not over 50 millimeters or anything on that. And I don't think it's over 50 millimeters on this, but just it looks big as a square. You can get away with a lot smaller looks when you use square shapes. But you know, I've also found that a lot of collectors, they can't get past circle thinking. So if you tell them, here's a square watch and it's 36 millimeters, they immediately go, it's way too small. They just think it's going to be way too small because to them, for their wrist, a 36 millimeter round watch would be too small. But they might be okay with a 38 millimeter round watch. A 36 square might be along the lines of a 38 round. It depends a little bit on how the lugs are done and such, of course. But anyway, just opining a little bit about people get weird when you tell them about shapes that are not round because they still think in round and in the ways of round, which isn't really surprising. It is most of the watches that we experience as collectors. Joe says, I like the look. I want the laughing skull Bell and Ross. I have seen that one before. I don't think I could ever get a watch with a skull on it. Maybe if like a Mr. Jones watch or something. There are a lot of like skulls and death motifs in watches, and I've always found it weird. Like I don't understand the Dios de los Muertos theme to watch like a lot of watches. I don't know. It's weird to me. Timmy says, yes, too big for the likes of me. And Koji says, they make a 36 millimeter version of the 1921, which works better proportionally to me. It's a good point, Koji. I have tried on a 30. It's actually 36 and a half, I believe, technically. We don't want to shortchange that half meter. I know Tim Masso did a review of one of them at one point for his Watchbox channel and noted, I think he's the one who probably said with that watch that it wore more like a 38 millimeter. I want to think the lug to lug on the 36 is around the 45 millimeter mark. So it's still a very compact watch. It's just as a square, it feels very substantial on the wrist. And as a watch that's only time telling, it's time only. There's no dates or anything else to worry about. It's hour minute with a small second. You don't need a lot of like chronographs and smaller sizes. I understand the fear. When it's just a time telling watch, is it really as big of a deal? I don't think so. But anyway, yeah, I was surprised when I tried the 36 on because I thought, I know my wrist isn't big, but I just thought a 40 normally seems so normal. I didn't even try on the 40 millimeter when I was at the boutique because the 36 fit so well. I'm sure I could wear the 40. You get more gold. They made a lot more of them because they've run that 40 for like a decade now. I think those 36s only came out a couple of years ago. But we're not here to talk about the Vacheron 1921. Neff adds, Bell & Ross also knows how to make thin watches, which I appreciate. Yes, a good thin watch is important. And we're going to talk about a couple of thick watches here for our next choices. Everything is a sports watch today. We're going to actually move, though, to some pilot watches from Breitling. They have 3 new references in their Avenger lineup. Now, the Avenger line is not a watch model line that I've ever spent a lot of time looking at. But again, these are interesting. I'm going to show them, obviously. This is a blog to watch article, so you can, again, video description has the link, so you can actually go and read this and explore the pictures in depth. So these are all sort of U.S. Navy themed watches. There's one you see on the screen currently. This is one that's based off of the U.S. Naval Academy. Then they have one that's based off of two more that are based off of some experimental squadrons. There's the Bloodhound one, which is the VX-30 experimental squadron, and then there's the VX-31 squadron called the Dust Devils. So the Bloodhounds have like a triple head dog theme. So you can see on the 9 o'clock subdial that's what they've got here. This is a very, I'd say, relatively conservative looking watch with it's ceramic. You see the yellow stitching and yellow highlights. The most traditional is probably this one. This one that's based off the U.S. Naval Academy. You can see their logo here at the 9 o'clock subdial. Reminds me a bit of there's a digital citizen that, well, I think it's an Annie-Digi, that I believe is also U.S. Navy themed. This color scheme reminds me of that watch. Tony, who's been a guest host on this channel a few times, he has one of those citizen ones. And then probably the loudest one is this one. I guess this is a little devil riding a dust devil, like or a tornado. Let's just say a tornado, right? Tornado. I think he's got a little gun in his hand. Red, obviously, highlights. I think make it a little bit more aggressive than the other 2 options. These are big. These are 44 millimeter watches. They are over 15 millimeters thick. Light, though, because they are ceramic, just like the Bell & Ross, 300 meters of water resistance. So that surprised me. I thought these would probably be around 100, but they've gone ahead and given them dive spec, basically. Date window you can see here at the 6 o'clock position. And these are chronographs. They are B01 powered. Probably part of the reason why these are 15.2 millimeters thick. The B01 isn't exactly the thinnest automatic chronograph on the market. And that's the main thing. Display case back so you can look at the movement, which is reasonably machine finished. Pricing is substantial, like I would expect with any Breitling chronograph, but they're all $10,200. So my overall thoughts, I actually think these executed pretty well. I would say the red one is my least favorite. I probably color scheme wise like this look of the Dirt Devils one the best, or the Bloodhounds, excuse me, the Bloodhounds one the best. But I'd say the best execution is probably the Naval Academy. Here's my problem with a watch like this. I would never buy them, saying the size, saying the price, saying all of that aside, even though I think these are well balanced, well put together watches. I have a problem with military insignia on watches when I didn't serve in these. Like, I'm not a Navy veteran. So maybe then, I mean, so I could see in particular why this one would probably do well is because the U.S. Naval Academy, a lot of people have probably attended the U.S. Navy Academy, so they might want to buy this for nostalgia reasons. The other two, I imagine, I don't know anything about these squadrons, but I imagine these squadrons do not have a lot of people that have been through them comparatively. And so to me, it always felt a little bit like you're a poser if you're going to wear military insignia. I mean, obviously these are being civilian sold. It's not like a stolen valor thing, but I'm deeply uncomfortable. Had they put these things not on the dial, like if these triple heads were on the back, on like a closed case back, okay, I wouldn't be as bothered by it. But since they're on the front, I think it suggests that you served in the VX30. And I would, for that reason alone, I would be way too uncomfortable to ever wear these. I like the theme. I like the concept. I like the way they kind of brushed. I mean, we got like a media blasted ceramic bezel, but you've actually got brushed ceramic here in the casework. Actually, I think there's some pretty significant finishing that's gone on with these watches. And when we jump to Blancpain, you're going to see some stepped up even more. But I think they've done more here than what you might think. And the sizing, I do want to note, even though 44 millimeters is by no means a small watch, these are not going to be heavy watches because of the material used to make the cases. So given all of that, I'd like to see something without the military branding that's like this, that's like black with splashes of color, and maybe something a little more conservative and traditional as a 9 o'clock, standard indices like you would normally expect with most of the chronographs. I get why they didn't do it here, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I think these are really nice looking watches, but I would be way too uncomfortable to buy U.S. Navy watches that seem to be suggesting that I was served in one of these groups when I didn't. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Joe says, I really like the Naval Academy one. Let me go ahead and jump over to that one so people could take a look at it. But having not attended the Naval Academy, let me just reread it all because I lost my place. I really like the Naval Academy one, but hard to buy having not attended the Naval Academy. I have a nephew flying planes in the Navy and thought a version might be good for him, but also too niche. They are pretty niche, especially the two experimental group ones. Neff says, I agree. I would not feel comfortable wearing an insignia I did not earn. And Joe says, agree. Too close to stolen valor for me, but the watches look fantastic as designed. Yeah, I think Breitling did a really good job. I think this really suited the Avenger model line, which honestly is not a model line that I've ever really spent time looking at. I've mostly looked at Navitimers and a little bit at the Chronomats, and that's basically it. I've looked at like the Pistachio, Prestige, I don't know what that line even is called. It might be one of their heritage lines at this point. I've looked at those two, not seriously to buy because they crop the hour numerals with their subdials, which of course is a major no-no that we all agree is completely wrong and no one should ever do it. But for that reason, I dismiss a lot of Breitling because they do some aesthetic choices that normally don't resonate with me. Other than the military thing here, I actually thought it was very, very well balanced. Now, For the third new release and final one that I had planned for us to go over today, I want to jump to this Fratello article about Blancpain. Now, Blancpain actually has gone ahead and turned out 3 new versions of their Bathyscaphe. Now, specifically, I'm sure you all love it when I can't pronounce anything properly. The Blancpain Bathyscaphe Quantime Complete. That's probably wrong. We'll just call them Bathyscaphes. So, this article actually, again, link in the video description. This article actually shows you some of the older models as well. And that's going to come into play for a reason in a moment. But I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about this. I've actually been a big fan of the regular Bathyscaphe. Here's an example of a regular Bathyscaphe. There is a lot of negative space on the dial. So they do have the capabilities, and Blancpain has in the past actually gone ahead and added additional complications into the watch to make it more interesting, functional, whatever you might want to say about it. But historically speaking, the Bathyscaphe, it is in the 50 fathoms line. We normally say 50 fathoms on the Bathyscaphe, though, and the reason is there's the stereotypical super functional 50 fathoms, and then Blancpain came out with the Bathyscaphe to be more wearable. It was still a very big watch for the time. I think 41 millimeters. And a lot of the models, including these new ones, are around 43 millimeters. These are not small watches, but for a lot of people, it was the way. If you really wanted a Blancpain and you wanted a dive watch, you would get into it because that was still better than 45 millimeters, which until this year is basically what you were stuck with if you got a mainline 50 fathoms that wasn't a limited edition. So we've got some stuff going on here in terms of these new watches. They are ceramic. This is not the first time the Bathyscaphe has been in ceramic. Just noting that these are in ceramic. I believe the dials are made out of gold. I think that was noted in the article. Let's see. Yes. So there are 2 new dials. There's a blue one and a green one. They're both sunburst. You know me and sunburst. I love sunburst. But the dials themselves are gold, and then they've been made these colors. And as you can see, there are some significant complications in play. So you've got a moon phase, you've got a day, month, and day of the month indicator, a pointer for that, which kind of Aura style is you've got pointer date that goes around the inner portion of the chapter ring before the indices, I should say. So not really at the chapter ring itself. And then you've got the day of the week and the month indicated as discs up at the top. I think it's a really well-balanced style. I don't know if I love it with the handset, the syringe handset that is what the Bathyscaphes like to use, but I think it's okay. It's kind of weird because it looks sort of elegant, as you can see here, but also I think pretty sporty because the syringe hands are, I think, a very sporty looking handset, which I've normally been quite okay with the Bathyscaphes, but I know some people really don't like them. But as you can see from this shot, it really does fill out the dial a lot more to have this level of complication. So basically, we have calendar functionality added into the watch along with a moon phase, if you happen to want that. So there's that. And they're attractive. I don't know if I would actually get these over just a regular plain 3-hander plus date. I think I probably would lean more that way, in part for price, but also in part, I don't know if I really want a moon phase in a dive watch. I think that's a little weird. But hey, we all have our choices. Here's the main thing that I wanted to point out that I think is pretty interesting. They now have a bracelet for these watches. This bracelet is ceramic. So a couple of things. I have considered buying a Blancpain Bathyscaphe 50 fathoms for over a year. Part of the reason I never have pulled the trigger on it is they're always on a strap. They either come on a sailcloth, rubber-backed sailcloth strap, which I've heard is pretty comfortable, or you can get them on a NATO. That's basically the only ways they come. They didn't come on bracelets. They didn't come on steel bracelets. They didn't come on any bracelet. And it's always been weird to me because for such a luxury watch, well finished, finished above Rolex, finished above Omega, often compared to the 300M and the Submariner, but they never came on bracelet. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like functionally, I totally get why you'd want it on sailcloth or on a NATO, but from a luxury experience standpoint, and the finishing on these watches is luxury. I've never understood why they didn't come on a bracelet. And it honestly kind of pissed me off. So I was just like, I just can't. I just couldn't do it. Like Del Rey Watch, Federico, if you've ever seen his YouTube channel, he's had one of the Bathyscaphes. I think it's one of the 43 millimeter ones, ceramic as well. I think he's had it for sale for over a year. And if you take a look, it came on the sailcloth. If you look at the photos, that sailcloth is tore up. That's probably why he hasn't been able to move the watch. But again, so I'm like, I see that though, and it's helpful because I look at it and I go, okay, so how often do I have to change the straps on these things? Even if the watch is nigh unscratchable because it's ceramic, this would solve part of that problem because now all of a sudden you've got the whole bracelet out of ceramic. And other than Rado, I don't think Swatch Group has turned out ceramic bracelets before. The reason why it's noteworthy is you see this shot here with this non-moon phase, non-calendar function version on the bracelet. The bracelet is now available on the older models as well. So that's the big news. So even if you don't like this new moon phase, you like the old chronographs instead, you like the three-hander with the 4:30 date window instead, those now have the option to get the ceramic bracelets. And it's not simply that they accomplish that because the finishing, how ceramic shrinks when you're working with it, the holes that have to be drilled in it and just still maintain the structural integrity. Doing bracelets in ceramic is not an easy thing. And this is not just like they've done finishing to all of these watches and such. Like if you look at it, there is brushed, they do brushed finishing on this, right? So again, kind of going back to some of the looks here on the Breitling, where you could see like some brushing work, like they've gone ahead and they've done like high-end finishing to ceramic, which is not a simple feat to have happen. Now, there's a catch. There's a downside. There's always a down. This Blancpain, there's always a downside. So you got that display case back, beautiful gold dials, well-finished watches, beautiful ceramic, all this going on. What's the price? Price is a lot. These are always expensive, which is why I've always looked to use in gray market. These often up on Joma Shop. But here is the good case in point. Actually, it's highlighted here, but I knew it was down here. These new versions, the calendar ones, are 20,000 euro, but they're 28,000 euro on bracelet. It's an 8,300 euro bracelet. That's an issue for me. I mean, it's like functionally, I don't know if I could bring myself to buy an $8,000 bracelet, euro bracelet, Swiss franc bracelet. I just don't think I could do it. I think maybe, I could see it in my head with gold. I understand all the challenges with doing the machining of ceramic. It's far more than gold. I just don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it as much as I love it. So I guess I need to hope for a steel bracelet because I just don't think I can handle it. But anyway, 43.6 millimeters in diameter. So these are not small. This is the I think that's the standard normal size, large size, however you want to think of it, Bathyscaphe. But note, it is just under 50 millimeters lug to lug. It's 49.5. This also is 1.1 millimeters thinner than the Breitlings we just talked about at 14. And again, these are ceramic, so they are very, very light. But beautiful watches, 300 meters water resistance, 20,000 euro watch. I know you're going to save 30+% when these hit gray because they're going to make too many of them because they always do because it's Blancpain. But 8,000 euro bracelets, holy crap. I mean, this is a nice looking bracelet, but holy crap. I just don't think I could get behind it. Too bad too. I'm glad they did it, regardless of the pricing. I'm glad they did it. But anyway, that's the final thing I wanted. Like, I saw that they had the bracelet on the back catalog, and I was like, yes, finally. The ceramic has always been the one I've been the most interested in. And I've wondered, like, if they were to do it, if it'll hold up better than I've heard. Again, ceramic has a stress point where it will break. And I've heard about people breaking their Rados and such. And so I don't know if I'd ever get behind getting a ceramic Bathyscaphe anyway. But I thought, maybe, if anyone could do it right, it would be Blancpain. But that price is so high. It's so high. I just don't know. Okay. So catching up on chat. Neff says, if Blancpain did a 38 millimeter ceramic Bathyscaphe, I would be first in line. I really love that model. While they have done the 38 millimeters, I am not aware of them having had done a ceramic version. I used to, on Joma Shop, keep bookmarked some of the stainless steels in 38 because they did a 38, I think maybe over a decade ago, and they were very targeted to women. Like they were white dials and stuff. They had a more of a fashion vibe. However, they then started doing just all the regular dials in the unisex sizing. What do they think of 38 as the unisex sizing? So like the blue dial, the gray dial, with the sunburst effect, which, as you all know, I love. So I always figured those would be very, very wearable. I was always that would have been at the time like my smallest dive watch, though. And again, that gut reaction, is it a little too small? I mean, it shouldn't be. I honestly, I don't think it would be. And having now owned an Aquascaphe from Baltic, which I think is a 39 millimeter, it would have been fine. I'm sure the 38 would be great, but it would be nice to see it in some other materials, like they have done on the regular line. Let's see. Joe says, the Bathyscaphe. Happy lovey face. I'll take the blue annual calendar ceramic, but I need to wait for the used or gray price. Yeah. But I gotta admit, the more I look at this dial, sorry, I'm jumping through the side scrolling. Because the more I look at the new ones and the dial faces on these, I really do think these look very well balanced. They did a very good job with these. And I like both, but I do agree. I think this blue, especially the kind of the fume effect where it's lighter in the center, I think I do favor that over the green that they've done here, which is maybe a little too light in the center. I don't know. They're both really good. But I think you're right. I think the blue is the right way to go with that. Neff says, I would love a 38 millimeter with a ceramic bracelet. I really hope they do that. If these are successful, I have a high degree of confidence now that they've cracked the code on how they wanted to do the machining and the finishing. They could do them with the smaller lug width and it'd not be a big deal. But of course, how well will they sell? I don't know, especially in this market. I don't know. Joe adds, when you put it like that, wow, what a pricey bracelet. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty telling once you looked at the price for these new models on Strap and then saw that it was another 8,300 euros just to add I mean, that's the only change up, is adding the bracelet. So it's an 8,000 euro, actually more than 8,000 euro bracelet. That is steep for a non-precious metal, very steep. Neff says, nope, I'm not paying 8,000 for a bracelet. P.S. I'm the one that broke a Rado. Don't mess with ceramic in the cult. Okay, well, maybe Blancpain has figured out how to better temperature. Like, it's like quartz, right? Maybe they figured out how to better temperature control, like the high-end quartz, but for ceramic. I don't know. I don't know if I could take the chance for 8,000. Neff, you should take the chance for 8,000 and then let us know if it was a good move or not. Just make sure you still have your warranty, I guess, and you'll be okay. I'm sure of it. Joe Bolt, welcome to live stream. I'm a sucker for a good moon phase, but this one is more expensive than better alternatives. Now, I agree. And that was part of my initial kind of qualms about these with that. Whereas this straight up, elegant, simple, with a tool vibe. It's a luxury dive watch, but with a tool vibe. It's weird for me with moon phases in sports watches, and I don't know how I feel about them. I've only ever owned one moon phase. It was a Glashütte Panamanic Lunar. It was on bracelet, so it had a very sporty vibe. I didn't have, like nowadays, I think they sell them all on straps because they really orient the Pano line as a dress watch line. And that's how I viewed it even with the bracelet. So I like the style, this more whimsical moon. I like all moon faces pretty much. So I like this whimsical moon face. I think it works with the watch. Again, I think they made all the right choices in terms of balancing and aesthetic and all the rest of it. I just don't know if I really want that on. I don't think I really want that on a dive watch inherently. I think I like it in this instance mostly because with the rest of the stuff going on with the dial up here at the 12 o'clock position, it's just it was the right way to balance it all. Plus the thinness is it's kind of, I get it because the Breitlings that we looked at here are chronographs, But it's interesting, right, to say this is 15.2 millimeters. This is 14.1. This just gives you your standard date disc and your chronograph functions. And again, tells you a lot about how complicated a chronograph is. Whereas this has pointer date, 2 discs, one for the day, one for the month. And then you've got the whole moon phase complication added into it. And it's 1.1 millimeters thinner. Now, part of that is Blancpain is a higher tier company than Breitling, but I also, the B01 required a certain amount of accommodation, and I'm not quite sure what the Bathyscaphe chronograph thickness is, so it may not be the proper apples to apples way to think about it. But I just think it's interesting, so I just thought I'd throw it out there. But I agree with you, Joel. Definitely, if I was going in the realm for moon faces, I'd probably be looking at JLC or something and get it in a dress watch configuration. I just think that it's more at home there. But this is such a well-balanced dial that if this wasn't obscenely priced, I could definitely see thinking, you know what? This is pretty cool. I'm going to put it back on the blue one because I do think it's the better one. Tuna says, the dreaded Rado. Oh, yes, and I forgot Neff was. I remember the stories, Neff. I can't just remember who engaged in such destruction. Neff continuing his tale of woe with his Rado. I just threw the pieces away 2 days ago. Fastest $580 I ever lost. That is tragic. I do feel for you. Very much so. Tuna says, well, Neff, I've never indulged in ceramic, nor have I. And after hearing Neff's story, it stuck with me because I thought about getting a Rado because it seemed like the most affordable way to get the full ceramic experience. It's not. There is actually a Young Hans that's around $1,000. That's a solar powered watch that has a ceramic bracelet. But again, I don't want to be neffed. If I'm neffed and I have to throw the watch away, I'm going to be sad. Tony, welcome to the live stream. I do like how it looks, but man, there is no way that is worth that. Oh, the $20,000 to $28,000 in euros. Well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't, if I was spending 20 to 28,000, there are a lot of other watches I would get at that particular price point. But this watch is gonna go for, I don't know what it's gonna go for. We're gonna go on because we have plenty of time. We're gonna go on a Joma Shop adventure. So I'm gonna load that up and I'm gonna find the Blancpains for us. And we're gonna do some exploring because it always seemed like they took a pretty steep hit when talking about a gray market versus retail pricing. And I think Joma does a good job about actually showing you what the retail prices of the various watches are. Because, of course, they're trying to promote the savings. So, I'm going to say watches. We're going to say Blancpain. And let's see. Let's do dive to further thin it out. All right, guys. Here we go. So we've got a variety of all right. So here's one 50 Fathoms Bathyscaphe, probably in steel, but I'm not sure. Yes. So this is stainless steel, which they retail for a little over $10,000. So about sub date prices. Discounting is 30%. So it's a $7,000 watch on Joma Shop site. We do not. I know I'm eligible for everything. I don't want your discounts. Leave me alone. So here's a blue one, 9,250. This is ceramic. So you'll see the retail is almost $13,000, but you can save 28% going gray, get it for 9,250, and you get the ceramic case. But again, it didn't come on the bracelet. It's the 43 millimeter sizing. So, because I don't think they have the 38s in ceramic, but the 38s, I think this might be a 38. Yeah. So here's a 38 in steel retail. Yeah. The 10,100 again. This is on the NATO, 7,450, 26%. So savings of 25 to 30% is pretty common gray market on these. Here are some of the women's 38s that I mentioned that are targeted to women in the white. So yeah, no, as you can see, like Blancpain hits the gray all the time. all the like they're non-limited 50 fathoms and 50 fathom Bathyscaphes. You can find almost anyone you want here after a year or so. So I suggest it personally, but I don't know. You may want if you were getting a ceramic bracelet, maybe you want to spend the extra money just to have the better warranty that you would get from Blancpain. But of course, that is your own that's your own decision to make. All right. Getting caught up a little bit on the chat. Joel says, I see all watches that aren't Apple watches as somewhat formal, so the moon phase on a sports watch does not bother me. Joe adds, I have the Speedmaster moon phase, and it is thick. Neff noting, yes, the expression, don't get neffed. It's a thing now. Don't get neffed. Neff says, last time I checked Joma for a 38 millimeter Bathyscaphe, it was 7,400-ish. And yep, it's still floating in around those prices. This one might be, yeah. So this might be the cheapest. So if you want to get the black sailcloth version with the ceramic insert and then the gray dial and 38, that's 7,050. So Joe adds, Del Rey, cheapest in the country, ceramic strap you referenced, unworn for 8,500. I'm not here to help him sell his watches, but I'm going to show another one that I referenced it earlier, so I'm going to bring it back up. So let's go ahead and we'll go to his site. So he has another one that has been on sale for a while now because the strap is tore up, but it is ceramic. And that was, unless he just sold it the other day, but I swear I checked these 2 days ago, I think. So I've never bought through him, so I can't comment on the experience. Here it is. So he's got this one down to 6,400, and it came on the kind of calf sailcloth style. It's the 43.6, but you can see why I think he's having trouble selling it. The strap is tore up. This strap is not in good shape. So you can really see it on this side. Like it's totally, but you'd have to replace this strap. Or you'd want to, for sure. I wouldn't want to put this on. So I think that's why this one has sat and he's discounted it. Because I think when he first listed it, yeah, he had it at 7,500 and he's dropped it over $1,000 at this point. I think this watch has been here for a year. So again, FYI, if you really want and you want to just order another strap from someone, I've thought about it about 6 times, but every time I think about it, I'm just like, I want the watch on a bracelet, and they don't have a bracelet, and I don't want a third-party bracelet, and then I just get sad. So anyway, FYI about that. But let's see. Neff says, look at that, 11 millimeters thick. So nice. Yes, that was, to me, much more ideal thickness for a dive watch. Neff says, I would go with the gray dial one. $7,000, not bad at all for a watch like that. That is a grail diver, in my opinion, especially considering the movement finishing. And that is something to note. These do have the display movement. They didn't always have the display case backs if you go back a few years on the Bathyscaphes. But yeah, the movement is beyond just about any other dive watch you would ever entertain. Especially at this point, you're under Rolex in pricing. This is far better finished. The rotor is gold in and of itself. I know these new ones we're talking about here have gold dials as well. You just can't tell that they're gold because they're painted. But the movements themselves on the Bathyscaphes, the rotors are gold. So you do have some precious metal application, which, yes, Rolex also does use precious metal, but only for the indices. So it's a minute amount of gold that's employed on their watches. This would give you more if you care about that. But the finishing in and of itself is far, like this is I can't really zoom in anymore at the website, but actually we can get a look at them here because I know they have a rotor shot for one of these watches, and it's basically the same, but there's quite a bit of finishing that is applied. It's almost like a media blast. Here you can see 18 karat gold rotor, but it's like a media blasted gray rotor. And then you've got the Geneva striping. You have the engine turning base plate. They do beveling. You can kind of make that out here. They do polish the bevels of the movement. It's a serious watch. It's a serious high-end finishing effort that they do for the price point. It's there with Glashütte Original is what I would say. But I think this watch is probably better finished than their dive watches, which are pretty popular dive watches with people. But like I would get this over the CQ, but your mileage may vary depending on which dial aesthetic you prefer. But anyway, that's everything I had for us. So unless you all have particular questions or items you wanted to discuss, we went on a Jobma Shop adventure. We went on a Del Rey watch adventure. We looked at the backs of Bathyscaphes. We talked about the stolen valor of Breitling, even though they don't mean to do it. We talked about how Bell & Ross still makes squares with circles inside of them. I mean, basically covered everything. We even talked a little bit about Seiko this morning and the weirdness that is Seiko. Speaking of speaking, let me apologize for everyone who stuck through all of this. If you watched last week's live stream, you all, if I sound really weird when I'm doing the live stream, you can say so in the comment section. I had the microphone for the webcam activated, not my condenser mic that I had plugged in. And the reason is the system defaulted to it because I accidentally plugged them in different USB ports. If I plug them in the same USB port every time, it remembers. Apparently, I swapped the cords. I noticed I'd swapped them. I didn't think anything of it. But someone had commented on the video after it was recorded and said that I sounded really strange. And I played part of it back, and I realized I sounded incredibly tinny. And it wasn't that I was sick. It was that the garbage tier microphone that's built into my Logitech webcam was capturing all of the audio. And that is why I use the Blue Yeti for this stuff, because then you hear how annoying but normal that's my normal voice that you're hearing versus whatever comes out of that webcam. So anyway, if it ever sounds like I'm kind of like talking through a tin can, it probably isn't my voice. It probably is the wrong. I mean, I was audible, so I could see why maybe no one really noticed, but I must sound, you can compare the two after this is done, and you can be like, wow, he really did sound awful. At least to me, I could really know. Once I played it, part of it, I was like, oh no, they're absolutely right. Something was way wrong. I went back and checked the settings. I was like, I bet it's the wrong microphone. I've had it happen one other time, and made a lot of difference. But anyway, that is it. I don't see any key questions. So thank you so much for those of you who were able to attend live. Comment on the 3 watches below if you're watching the recording. And I'd love to read your feedback on what you think about the new Bathyscaphe Avenger watches from Breitling or the new BR03s that Bell & Ross has turned out. I'll plan to be back next weekend. It's a holiday week. I'm actually going to have a few days off. But I'll be back. I'm not going anywhere notable far away or anything. So I'll be back by next Saturday. So we will be planning to have some sort of discussion. I have no idea if we're going to see a bunch of watches drop in 4th of July week. I assume Switzerland doesn't really care about the 4th of July though. So anyway, until the next video, take care everybody, and I'll talk to y'all on the next one.